Hi all, and welcome to Data Lens, the short series where we talk about market research in the outdoor hospitality industry. Today I'm here with Scott Barr, the president of Cairn Consulting Group. With over 35 years of experience in market research, Scott has a wealth of knowledge to share, and I'm here to ask him some questions that you want to know. So let's hop in. On today's episode, we are talking about how to identify your target market using market research. So, Scott, kicking things off, what are the key characteristics of a target market?
That's always the challenge. It's for many organizations, they think that their target market are the people who show up. It's like, well, who shows up? And that's not necessarily true. Your target market is the combination of people who are attracted to what you have to offer and who you want to attract. That, where's that overlap? Where does that sweet spot exist between who you attract, who you want to attract, and who ends up showing up? So it's, for example, if you take many campgrounds or glamping parks will have an array of accommodations and or campsites for their guests, and they're all priced differently in many cases. So if you're, for example, an RV park that has a great deal of large pull-through sites, yet your guests are showing up in camping vans, tents, and small, maybe small teardrop trailers. What you're doing is you're attracting guests, and I'm not saying anything against any of those types of campers. What I'm saying is that campground is designed for bigger rigs. It's designed for the maybe the big Class A's with a towing a vehicle behind, or a fifth wheel, or a large 30-foot towable. That's what those sites are designed for. So if you've set up your campground to accommodate those larger rigs, yet you're filled up with people in the way they camp, that doesn't fit your target. The way you're targeting your guests is off, and that's a fairly simplistic example. But in some of the work that we've done, we've seen what we do is we ask campground owners and managers who their typical guest is, and we ask them who they'd like to have show up, and there's always a gap. It never aligns. Almost never. Once in a while it does, but it rarely aligns. And so what that tells me is that in their mind they have a target, but who's showing up doesn't. Now how do you get those people?
All right, so then kind of continue on that train of thought. So how do you use data to define your ideal customer?
In this regard, the best thing that you can do is first go out and ask your guests what they think about what you offer. So how do they feel about everything? Your services, amenities, your sites, your service, all those things. Look at that first. That's your first step. Just say, here's what our guests think of us and what we offer. Next, you go out and you ask campers who are not your guests about what they think about what you offer. And now what you look for are gaps. Like, what's the gap between the two? And then the third part of that equation is to ask guests who is most likely to stay at your campground or glamping park. And then, so now you have a profile. You have three profiles. You have your current guest profile. You have a general market guest profile and their views toward, services, amenities, and offerings. And the third is the guest who is most likely to stay. And that third option is is really probably the sweet spot in all this. Who is that, and how do you attract them? Maybe it's not realistic, and maybe you need to change something about what it is that you're offering. Maybe you need to change things up, whether it's your sites or something like that. But if your target market doesn't align with what you offer, you have to revisit how you market, maybe. Or again, maybe revisit it, and that honestly is the easiest solution. And I won't even go into revising your campground because that's a heavy lift, and all campground owners know that's something it's always ongoing anyway. But in this case, the identification of the person who's most likely to stay based on the offerings and your current set of guests. You look at the difference between the two. What is the difference between your current guests and that guest who's most likely to stay? Where are the gaps? Is it in the type of accommodations? Is it families versus non-families? Is it an older profile, a younger profile? Is it people in Class A's, or is it people in teardrops or people in tents? It's like, what's the difference there between those two? Because that's going to help you identify not just your target market, but how you're going to market to your target market.
Gotcha. No, that makes complete sense. And kind of as a follow-up to that, so would you say, is your target market or your target customer kind of changing, or is it kind of recursive? So essentially it's like you have your target market and it changes over time because of kind of how the direction your campground, say, is going. Is it always changing, essentially? It's like my question.
That is up to the campground owner. It has a lot to do with what you offer, again, how you're marketing yourself once again. But the third part of that is, how are you changing and what are your goals? If you have changed what you do, then by definition, your target market is probably going to change. So you're going to, for example, say you focused on tent campers for years. So you're maybe a fairly rustic campground, but you upgraded and you put maybe some cabins or yurts on some of those former tent sites. Well, now your target market's going to change because of the mix. You're going to have fewer tent campers showing up. Well, you want fewer tent campers to show up because you want to fill up those yurts or cabins. So you see, and the yurt camper is going to be a very different profile than that tent camper. So again, you need to be flexible enough, because if you do the same messaging and the same approach to your marketing after you've made some changes to your park, then you may run into some issues, both short and long term.
No, that's great insight. Thanks for that. So what research techniques help refine audience insights?
If you want to refine your insights, I think this is a topic where a lot of people, they don't get to this point, unfortunately. They'll do, in many cases, a good job of setting up the research that I mentioned prior, surveying their own guests, surveying some prospects, finding out that overlay, helping identify that ideal customer, your target market. And the final phase, though, is to do some qualitative research. And that is, do some interviews with guests and prospective guests, and talk to them about their experiences. Make it be interactive. Have a detailed conversation with them. And this does not have to be formalized. This can be walking around your campground and talking to people. It can be talking to people at conferences. It can be, anyway, or you could hire us to do it. I'm not going to eliminate that part of the equation, but that's where the refinement comes in. That's where you find out more of the detail of the results of your previous research. It's like when people talk about, I'd like my site to be bigger. I'm just throwing this out. It's like, well, in an interview, it's like, well, if you want it to be bigger, like, please explain that. Like, does it need to be longer, wider? Is it, what about it needs to be bigger? Do you need more room for tables to set up? I mean, what kind of setup do you have that you need a bigger site? Because I thought our sites were pretty big already, but I mean, it's like you have that kind of conversation with them, about their stay. When you talk about the layout of the site. What did you like? What didn't you like? And there, a person may tell you something about maybe about your table or the fire pit. Maybe the fire pit didn't really work, or maybe there's something about the wood, getting campfire wood or something over to the site. Maybe it's too far away. There's many things that you're going to pick up in that conversation that you won't get in a quantitative study, because a quantitative study would need to be way too long to get into that kind of detail. So, again, people will tell you things that you didn't anticipate if you have a conversation with them.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. That's great insight. I mean, we love doing both quantitative and qualitative, but it sounds like qualitative is kind of getting to the more grittiness of it, right?
Absolutely. That's where you'll refine all the details that you need. It'll help you with your marketing too, because you can talk to them about things that attract them, don't attract them, and so on. We talk about marketing a lot. It's super important. And again, when you consider targeting in your target market, the word market is in there. Marketing, it is necessary. You have to do marketing. And I won't get off on a tangent on that too much here today, but find someone to work with for your marketing. Find someone to work with, because it's going to pay off. And all these things I'm saying today about research, if they're not saying it to you, find someone else. So that's my advice.
No, I think that's good advice. And it's kind of like, having that outside perspective and data to back it up provides those actionable insights that you're looking for. So I guess to kind of recap this, do you have maybe a step process, maybe 3 to 5 steps that you go through on each time you're trying to identify your target market?
I would say that the steps would be a lot about kind of some of the stuff we've talked about. One, who do you currently have? What do you offer? How does identify who's staying there first, or and how does that fit with what you offer? The third is to see, again, is evaluate the two. Do they fit? Is it fitting? The next step is, who do you want to stay at your park? And the next step would be figure out, how do you attract that person to your park? Those are the steps. It's each one of those has information gathering in it. Some of it's just evaluation, but you need to gather information at each one of those steps, because that final step is really important, because that's what you're going to hand over to your marketer.
Kind of let them take it and run from there. So,
yep.
No, that's awesome. And then just for clarity too, these steps are not just for the outdoor industry. You can apply these to any industry, right?
Absolutely. And we do. We work with other industries as well. And this is the approach. It doesn't matter if you're, managing the campground or making chocolate bars. And we have done that. So
yeah, I feel like we've worked on quite a few different kinds of projects. So cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Those are all the questions I had for today. So thanks everyone for joining us today for another episode of Data Lens. Don't forget to leave a comment or ask a question for next week's episode. Hit that like button if you like what you see. And as always, subscribe so you never miss out. Have a great day.
Goodbye, everyone.